excited to be here with Eileen and Kit. We've had the pleasure of having a few conversations before the conversation here, and we have a lot to talk about in 17 minutes. So we're talking about feminine leadership, and there's a lot of things that we think about when we think about that topic. And so I wanted to just start by opening it up to both of you and ask a very open question. How do you lead? And Kit, I'll start with you.
Okay, well, Cliff Bar is led by 5 aspirations: sustaining our people, our planet, our business, our brands, and our community. That's on the outside. On the inside, in our company, we have 5 ingredients. We want to create, connect, inspire. We want to own it, and we want to be ourselves. So my leadership style, everyone plays to one of those strengths inside. My leadership style is to be myself. And that's not always a good thing, but it is what it is. And part of that is being an intuitive leader, and that's who I am. And it's the way I lead the company in my way. As co-CVO, I'm
Chief Visionary Officer.
Chief Visionary Officer.
That.
I was telling Eileen, Gary and I just made those titles up, co-Chief Visionary Officers. After we stopped being CEOs, we were like, well, what should we be? So maybe you've heard that other places, but that's what we are at Cliff Bar. So that's how I lead.
Great.
Nice.
Thank you.
Great, cool. You're excited and I'm nervous. Why am I always nervous? What is that?
I know, this is your 3rd day on stage.
I know, I should be totally used to this. You guys are great. What a great group. Okay, how do I lead? I lead by listening. And I think I started my business, and I sometimes say that I didn't know how to sew. I didn't know anything about business. And so I had to listen to people to learn. And I just adopted that idea of listening. And, I'm always about gathering people and listening and trying to understand and, trying to, hear what people have to bring. So I guess that's sort of, there's a lot of other pieces to it, but I think it sort of starts there.
We talked a lot about just listening and spaciousness and making sure that through conversation and in meetings that we have, that you lead, that you create the opportunity to have the space for people to show up and share their point of view. And listening is a big part of that.
Yeah.
The other piece that I heard from both of you is that you listen, but then you listen to yourself.
Yeah.
So you listen to everybody else's point of view, and then you trust your gut at the end of the day to make a decision. I'd love for maybe, Eileen, you're kind of jumping out of your chair now, to just talk a little bit about
you touched my
that
passion.
piece.
No, it's about that idea of listening to myself and encouraging others to listen to themselves. And of course, we're doing the embodiment lounge, and so it's very much about how do we learn to really listen to ourselves. And so some of the things we do, just one little example, is when we have meeting, we'll usually begin with a check. After our moment of silence, we'll begin with a check-in. And sometimes we'll say, what are you feeling right now? And so that's an opportunity to encourage people to check in. And like, uh-oh, I'm feeling a little tense right now, or I'm excited, like you were saying. And or sometimes share something personal, which is, anyway, that's a different piece. But that listening to ourselves is really huge. And I think the more we listen to ourselves, the more we have a different opportunity to choose. So it's listening to others and listening to ourselves. It sort of goes together.
Yeah. The part of the leadership that I was talking about, the intuitive leadership, is a lot about listening to yourself. And it's difficult to do It's not male or female, masculine or feminine. I think we're all born with intuition. It's just developing that by listening to yourself. And in decision making, I think it's important to listen to others too, because that will tell you and inform you what you're feeling sometimes. In an example, I can tell you when I did not listen to my intuition, when I did not check in with myself. We had a big ad campaign, and everybody was really excited about it, and they were, they had this big deck, and they brought it in, and I was the final decision maker on this. They brought it into me, and I looked through it, and they were just beaming, like, come on, say yes, let's go. And I felt inside, this does not work for me. And it was, it was all in the big magazines and everything. And this was many years ago when I first started to be CEO, co-CEO with at Cliff Bar. And I just was so insecure about trusting that gut. I said, oh, I listened to them. They seemed all excited. Okay, well, let's go with this. Even though I felt inside, we shouldn't do this. So that was a $2 million mistake. I own it. It was not easy to own that one. But I learned a big lesson, and that was early on in my leadership at Cliff Bar, that I need to trust myself to make a decision based on my gut and other information, but to really listen to my gut. Now, when I did listen to my intuition and did the intuitive leadership portion, was another example of when I listened to it. Years later, more recently, we were being sued by a company. This is not a fun place to be. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to have to go to court or if we were going to be able to settle or what. So we were in the room together at the final decision making, and there was a point where everybody had stated their opinions. I had been listening, as well as several other people that were basically the experts in the company on this, including our corporate counsel. And everybody said, let's just settle. We had the ability to do that as a company. You pay a bunch of money, even though we didn't do anything wrong, and we were not in the wrong. We didn't know if we went to court what was going to happen. So we said, you know what? Everybody said, you know what? I think we should just settle and just move on with it. Well, there was one piece of information that happened that stuck to me that I just didn't like, and that information was this company that was suing us was also suing all these other little companies that didn't have the means to settle. So it pissed me off, and I said, you know what? This does not feel right. They're bullies, and I don't think we should move forward on this. So I had 5 guys, 1 woman, and me. And I was the only voice saying, this does not feel right. No, I do not want to settle. Let's go. I don't care if we have to go to court. We'll fight this. These are bullies, and I don't want them to do this to the little guys out there.
That's great.
So, that was listening.
That's great.
That was allowing space. But it's scary. I mean, I felt like I was shaking inside. Doesn't anybody else feel this? It was like I wanted confirmation, and all these feminine things, right? But actually, it turned out for the best, and we did win that case. But it was scary, and I think part of it is listening to others, and then being brave with your decision, even though it kind of goes against the grain, maybe.
I love that.
Yeah.
Add to
Well, I kind of wanted to build on something. At one point, you sort of mentioned about masculine and feminine, and I thought that we were talking a little behind the scenes about that. And I was thinking about, how I started my company, and it was a very kind of feminine organization, very much about listening and gathering, as I was talking about before, and it very much built very organically and circles, and then we got to a point a few years ago where we realized that we needed some masculine values more. We need a little more. And so it was a kind of an interesting thing for me to begin to understand that, I would walk into a room and there'd be 30 people and nobody was making a decision, and I started to panic, like, oh my God, we're going to really be stuck sitting in circles here, so just going around in circles. And so what ended up happening, and we're still in the midst of sort of a kind of a reorganization process of how do we hold on to the essence of these important feminine values and bring in the balance of the masculine. So how do we become more efficient, more focused, more decisive? And as we're playing with this, we're in the process of, I'm starting to find myself talking about structure, a word I absolutely refuse to use. I'm talking about strategy. I'm like, people are going, who are you? And what I'm realizing is what's happening for me personally is a kind of a balancing of this sort of masculine and feminine. Yeah. And what I'm realizing is, that's in all of us, and that it's possible that business needs more of the kind of way that, maybe women or the feminine model operates, more nurturing, more people-oriented, more listening, things like that. But some organizations might need more of the masculine. So I guess I think that's an interesting point. I think how much I'm realizing how internal this kind of balancing thing is.
And it's not either or.
And it's definitely not either
the
or.
And. Because
right.
we talked about how this isn't a women's issue. This is a business issue. And instead of having more women lean in and being more assertive, right. How do we have men ask questions and be reflective and be part of the conversation as well? So I love that both of you are thinking about the and, that we have to be intuitive and empathetic, and we have to make decisions and get our strategy done.
Right. And it's whole.
Yeah.
I think that the more that we bring masculine, principles, values into feminine organizations, and the more we bring feminine ones into masculine organizations, the more whole business will be and organizations will be.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's good.
So a lot of us, I think, work in probably, I'm just going to put it out
just
there.
interrupt you?
Yes.
Which is like my new masculine mode. Sorry.
That's good, Eileen. Good job.
No, but what I wanted to play that out, because if organizations are more whole, then there will be more well-being, I think, for all. I think who knows, there might even be more profit. That's maybe not the point. But I think there'll be just a more holistic view of, taking care of people, taking care of the environment, and actually realizing that our well-being and the well-being of the planet and the world doesn't depend on making more profits or our GDP going up. It's really about how do we rebalance so that we have more happiness and more wholeness. Anyway, I'm just
Right. That
I
was
didn't mean
worth
to interrupt you.
interrupting.
Sorry.
So a lot of us are in organizations that I would say probably are more masculine. So we don't have as much of the the listening, and there's a lot more reaction, I would say, in organizations. And one of the things we talked about, which I think was great, is I think both of you are lifelong learners.
Yeah.
You just, even, coming up here, I think you both said, this is something that I'm still nervous about. And I love that you do things that you continue to know that you're going to be stretched in. And so, we talked about that in the context of work, and I think a lot of women in particular think, before I make a presentation or before I talk to this person, I have to have it all figured out, and I have to make sure it's going to be perfect.
Right.
And you both said, gosh, it's so good just to try it out. Like, again, trust yourself enough to know what you want to say, and then create more of those opportunities to have those kind of conversations. I would love to just have you build on that.
Well, I think we're both showing up here, huh?
Yeah, I think to riff on that a little bit is, I think it's okay to take time to think about things, and One of the things that was brought up before we got on stage here was, we're pushed often to make decisions immediately, and there's this weird pressure because no one's life's in danger. Nothing's on fire, but we need to make a decision immediately. And I'm not saying we want to just procrastinate on decisions, but I think a part of this, including everybody, and listening to everybody, is to give some space for decision making. And that might mean, if I'm the final decision maker, I can say, you know what, I need to, go take a break. I'll be back in a half an hour and let you know what I think. I need to sleep on this. Everybody can take 2 minutes. And I think what happens often is, especially as women, we're sort of branded as, they're just floating around and they're talking about this and then they're talking about that. And it's like, it's okay to make decisions and take some time to do that. And I think, unless it's an emergency, it's back off a little bit and allow, maybe there's a person in the room that didn't get a chance to speak because everybody's just drilling forward and going, okay, we gotta go, and someone else may have the best idea of all, but they're just they can't get in there. By taking just a little bit of time, even in the meeting, to check in and say, okay, well, what do you think? You haven't said anything. That's really important. It's especially important for women who have been told to shut up and listen a lot. And which I think is important, listening, but not to shut up, but it's just taking time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eileen.
That's good. Well, I was thinking about that idea of kind of shutting down, or a lot of times you'll hear women say, "Oh, I work in a male-dominated environment. I feel shut down or dismissed a lot," something like that, and. Working in a feminine environment, I probably didn't really understand that experience until more recently, that I'm finding myself out in the world and in different environments where there might be, 10 men to 1 woman or something, different CEO worlds and stuff. And so I'm understanding that experience, and what I'm actually realizing is that it's me that's shutting down. It's not really that they're shutting me down. It's that I am shutting down and I am being triggered. And so what I'm noticing is that this goes back, I'm going back to my passion again, embodiment. And so that when I see myself shutting down, and this can happen to men, I'm sure, too. And this happens, women can do it to men, to women too, or to other men, where you feel that you can be made to feel, I guess that's not real, but you can end up feeling shut down. And I think the point I'm getting at here is it's our inner work, to really stop and notice, oh, I felt dismissed there, but now what do I do about that?
Instead of blaming them.
Instead of blaming them, go, maybe that's okay. Let me come back to what's my purpose here? What really matters? And maybe I don't have to keep talking, or maybe there's just one important thing I want to say. So I think the point I'm making is to be responsible for ourselves and our triggers, and not blame others, as you were saying, not. So
that's great. Thank you. So we could talk for another hour.
Oh, I know,
but I need to wrap up. I know.
That's the problem with women. It's like we could just talk. No.
Well, we'll continue.
We need about 3 hours.
We can all
and
continue
we'll
this
really get it all
conversation.
figured out.
But I just really
Sorry.
wanted to thank you both. I love that you're taking your business and making it into a movement beyond food, beyond clothing, and just creating that in the world. So
Can I leave you with 3 things to think about?
Yes.
Know your feelings, trust your intuition, and be brave.
It's a great ending.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's great.